So are you recording, Joe? I mean, if we do any good Merry Crimbles, I don't want them to be wasted.
Now I am recording, yes. Yes, indeed.
I love it.
Want to wish you and all the listeners a Merry Crimble.
That's great.
And go ahead, Sam.
Merry Crimble to you too, Jerry.
It's Joe, your faithful host and co-founder of Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. In case you missed our birthday, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary this summer. For 10 years, we've been getting together each and every week to bring you epic tales of tech support and business management, and I'm pretty sure we've saved a lot of people a ton of time by sharing our struggles and solutions. Starting now, we're shifting our focus to the Patreon community. That means the newest shows will be posted primarily on Patreon. How do you get the latest episodes? Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click on support. Pledge monthly, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only episodes right in your favorite podcast app. If you already support us on Patreon, log in there to get your special link and subscribe to the patron-only show so you don't miss anything. Here on the public show, we'll be featuring classic episodes hand-selected for you from our catalog of over 500 episodes, along with occasional new episodes too. And remember, we're regularly releasing new content on Patreon, where you can join our community of supporters starting at just $15 per month, giving you access to the freshest content. We feature dozens of exclusive shows on Patreon where we speak a little more freely about how we make business decisions, navigate client relationships, manage our employees, and sometimes deal with mistakes and difficulties too. Plus, as a patron, you receive access to our entire back catalog where you can revisit classic episodes and learn from colleagues we've interviewed who've shared their own best practices. Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support to pledge monthly on Patreon. We'd really appreciate your support, and we're confident your business will benefit from the wisdom of the community we've gathered there. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Command Control Power. Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our community. Our VIP supporters include Jason Detbarn of Adigy.com, Watchman Monitoring, and Adam Angst of Tidbits Content Network. Thanks very much for supporting the show.
Holiday party, we're all standing around the water cooler. We all have a drink except for me. Talk about anything. If it comes up, work comes up, that's good. If a little bit of TV comes up, well, of course, Joe won't have anything to say about that. But
no, I finished first season of Stranger Things. We can talk about that. Yeah, it was good.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, it was really good. Really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, they finally showed the thing in the last episode. You know, it's like they finally pulled out all the stops at the CGI and stuff.
You mean the Gorgonzola?
The Gorgonzola, exactly. Demogorgon. Yeah. Is that a D&D thing? A Dungeons and Dragons or whatever? Right. Is that like a character's name, or is that name just for the show?
I honestly don't know. A bunch of my friends were D&D players, but I was not growing up, so I couldn't tell you.
Oh, good thing for me to Wikipedia while you guys are talking. Go ahead, talk amongst yourselves.
You know what I like? I like that people call things the wrong thing, and if you've been doing this long enough, you know you know what they're talking about anyway, even though they're proclaiming it's something and it's not that thing, but you still know the right answer.
Not as simple as like UBS, but something else.
Right? Yeah, UBS, yes, exactly. I always think of the bank, obviously, whenever someone says that. The one that caused me to think of this recently was when they say, my screensaver's wrong, because I've got the wrong screensaver, and obviously they're talking about their background. People always call it the screensaver, but they're talking about the background, the desktop background.
We're interpreters is what we are. We got to figure it out for them.
That's true.
But of course, the worst one is, I have 150 gigabytes of memory left. I was just checking, and my computer's really slow. Can you give me anything that I can do? Can you just send me an email on that, how to fix my slow computer that has 150 gigabytes of memory?
Right. My husband says it's all these things I have on the desktop.
Right. Maybe that's slowing it down. I just need a general cleanup. Can you come here and do a general cleanup?
General cleanup, yes.
You think I just have too many apps? Or how about if I delete some email? Will that help? No,
I love it when they call you and they give you all these suggestions like that.
Right, exactly. They're telling you. Yeah.
I read online that, deleting my emails will help, right?
Right. Exactly.
You guys didn't have any reference to this, but I've talked about it in the past where I have one client follow that franchised radio personality, Kim Commando, And she's constantly clipping out little clippings. I guess Kim Commando's articles appear in the newspaper as well. And she's always forwarding me tips from Kim Commando. Kim Commando says that if I get rid of some email, my computer will get faster.
Right, exactly. But you have to remove 10% of each letter of the alphabet by recipient. That's the only way that it, speeds up across the board.
Actually, a demo Gorgon is a D&D thing. It's a powerful demon prince.
Ooh, a prince. Didn't know it was royalty.
Sounds like Justin Escar. He'll be our demo Gorgon. Our official demo Gorgon for this year. D&D was during my time, but I never played it.
I definitely had a few friends, but I don't know why. I just didn't get into it. I didn't get into collecting comics or baseball cards either for whatever reason.
When I was in college, I had this roommate called, his name was Russ, but they used to call him the dad and I started the nickname going on in the dorm because anytime I'd have to go out, and usually, I was always heading over to the music building to practice at night or hang out with buddies and stuff like that. And he'd go, so Jer, you're going out? Yeah, Russ, I'm going out. Yeah. Well, do you know what time you're going to be back?
Really?
I'm like, oh, I swear to God. So I used to call him my dad, and then the name stuck in the dorm, and he was perpetually known from that point forward as Dad. But Dad would play D&D with his buddies in the dorm, some other guys who kind of fit his personality type. So I always think of Russ or Dad playing Dungeons and Dragons while I'm, drinking profusely at the music building. We used to have these shot rehearsals, I used to play in a brass quintet. We'd put a bottle usually of Jack Daniels in the middle, and we would just take out new music and we'd sight read. So it's usually 2 trumpets, a trombone, tuba, and a French horn, and that's compromises a brass quintet. And again, we would be sight reading music. So the first person to blow a note, either miss or play a wrong note, and they stick right out. We'd have to stop, and that person would have to take a shot. 45 minutes into this shot rehearsal, the whole thing would just fall apart. Put away our instruments and just drink.
Nice. So that's what you music majors did in college for fun. I always wondered about that.
It doesn't help, though. I mean, the guy misses a note and you tell him to drink. I mean, it's only one direction to go from there, right?
Right, exactly. Well, that was the whole idea.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
shot rooms.
Yeah, for me, the D&D thing, I thought that was the super nerd thing. That was the only thing stopping me from being a complete and utter nerd and having absolutely no friends was the fact that I didn't play that. That was the only thing nerdier than the rest than what I did. I carried around 3.5-inch floppy drives. Yeah, not drives, but discs. I'd carry around those little, they call them floppy disks, but then they were not the original floppy disk, the 5.25-inch. They were the one size down from there. And some people thought they were hard disks because they had harder plastic cases. That was my experience growing up in school. I was a nerd carrying around floppy disks of all my HyperCard stacks, and that was pretty nerdy.
See, I wasn't into computers when I was a kid, when I was in high school or college for that matter. I kind of fell into it way later. Some say that you are correct, Joe. I don't know why. I mean, I did do I had a computer class and I did a little bit of a programming thing for school and it was fun, but I wasn't the type of guy that went over to the computer lab after hours or whatever and played around and did that stuff. Got all weird science or anything like that.
See, I used to hang out with the football players. I would play sports at recess. We'd go outside. And in middle school, we'd organize these football games. We'd play football. It was a lot of fun. I actually played football, Pop Warner or whatever. And then there was.
Did you really?
Yeah. And then there was kidding. 1 year where I discovered computers, I guess, or started to like computers. And I would, instead of going outside, this is such a classic, thing that nerds did. I did not go outside anymore. I would go to the computer lab and I'd play on computers all recess. So I stopped getting fresh air. I stopped running around, getting exercise. And so there was this distinct switch over from playing sports to playing computers. And that was, I think, when I went full nerd at that point.
And in the computer lab at school, what was the computer of choice that was there? Were they Apple IIs?
Yeah, when I started, in elementary school, when I first started learning about computers, there were Apple IIs, Apple IIes, and we would play Oregon Trail, number munchers and word munchers, and all those games. And my favorite thing to do though was logo. We would program these, logo. I forget what you call them, but basically like scripts or programs. And logo was this like basically primitive programming language, and it was the concept was based on this like point, like this thing they called the turtle for some reason, and it was like this little arrow on screen, and it would just be like at coordinate 0 0 to start, and you would say like, I forget what the exact code was, but it was something like go 10, it would like move forward 10 pixels or something. And then it would like, you'd say like turn right, or turn 90, turn 90 degrees right. And it would turn right. And then you'd say like go 10, and it would go 10 more pixels over that way. And then, turn 90 degrees again, and it would go, and then turn, go 10, and then turn 90 degrees again, go 10. And now you've got like a box, 10 by 10 box on screen.
Wait, could you explain that to me again? I'm not sure.
Are you writing it down?
Yeah.
So like
just listen back afterwards.
Yeah, you're
okay.
drawing,
I'll listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get it. You'll be able to visualize it in post. And then and you draw like this box on screen, and then you could change the color of the line. You could then move, say pen up. Pen up meant now when you move, you're not drawing a line, you're just moving. So you'd say like pen up, go 5. You'd move 5 more pixels, then you'd turn 90 degrees right and go 5 more pixels. Now you're in the middle of the box that you just drew. And now you say, I forget if you had to do pen down, right? And then you'd say fill, and you'd fill the box with a solid color or a pattern. And so you'd have to like visualize this in your head, like what's happening on screen and like how to get this code right. And sometimes, you'd program this thing and then like tell it to go, and it would just scribble all over the screen. And it was not what you wanted it to do at all. And you'd have to like troubleshoot it. But yeah, it was
syntax error.
Exactly. I mean, you'd have those. You'd have like, just like weren't visualizing it correctly, and you told it the wrong instructions or something. That was super fun. And like for the final project, we had to like draw something on screen. And I drew this like backyard scene with this fence and a house and then like UFO shape in the sky. I told it to fill it in pink and then fill it in blue and then fill it in pink and then fill it in blue. And it would like this flash, like alternating colors. Like, I like said, repeat 100 or something like that. And it would just like flash on screen. So I had this really crazy, like psychedelic final project in logo in elementary school. And I just remember that I want to find one of those discs where I have that on a, somewhere, and just like see how closely it matches my recollection of doing that.
If you find that would be ultimate. So that reminds me of how different that I am from you growing up, because I remember as you were telling this story, I did a project in high school on the computers where we had to create very basic animation as well. And we had like, I don't know, a few weeks to tackle this project. I thought it'd be funny. Apparently not. But mine ended up being a guy in a guillotine, and it came down on him, the screen filled with red. So
wow.
that I thought was a joke. I told to my friend, and I got in a lot of trouble in school.
Oh man.
I got sent to the guidance counselor. And they're like, "Do you want to talk about, And I was like, "It was a joke. I wasn't, but I don't know where I had gotten the idea, but I did, and I thought I was being funny, and apparently it was a really bad idea."
Wow.
Sam, I'm sensing a lot of anger here.
Yeah, that was basically the conversation.
I mean, how are things at home? Are you
is
okay?
Everything okay at the house? It's like, everything's fine. I was just being funny. So looking back, it was maybe a little violent.
We even had Apple II GSs, I think, back then, and then those started to kind of like come into favor, and then the Apple IIes were like the old school thing that started to get phased out, and then I think in middle school we had. There were still a few like Apple IIes around and 2GSs, but then it was all about the Mac, of course, by then.
So did you hear what happened to me this past week? Well, besides getting a dental implant, which we could talk about later if you want to, I had this job on the books for a while, and I had gone on site earlier to spec it out. The client showed me that they had 7 Mac Minis at various desks, and including a server, a Mac Mini server. We were going to upgrade them all to solid state drives because they were running slow. And I said, well, the thing is, we could take these apart. We do this all the time, and we'll put in Samsungs. And if you want, we really don't mark up parts. So you could order these direct. And I bet they're going to go on special for Thanksgiving. So the client, I was looking out for some sales for them, and this was sort of the beginning of our relationship, or the start of our relationship. And so we found a really good deal on 250 gigabyte Samsung SSDs. And they didn't have much data on any of these workstations, and just a few critical files on the Mac Mini server. So I show up on site this past Saturday. And I said, oh, I know your office isn't working on Saturday, and, I won't charge you extra. I'll show up on Saturday and we'll bang this out. And I'm thinking, 5 hours work, 6 hours work. And they were paying, our significant hourly rate. Wasn't like I came in with some sort of a bundled price. So it was a price by the hour. So it would be lucrative for me to work on Saturday. So I show up. And the first thing I do is I take apart the Mac Mini server because it's got the 2 drives and it's going to take a little bit longer. And I've done these before, those are a complete take apart. Yeah, so I started to back out the logic board, and then as I'm disconnecting the parts and I'm trying to hustle along and, be sensitive about the time, there's one mini connector. It's just a pressure fit that fits on the logic board, and it goes to the light on the Mac Mini server, and it's a long wire. And as I'm removing it, lightly lifting on it with a spudger, I must have put too much tension on the actual connector. All 5 wires of this little tiny connector that's smaller than half of my fingernail pull out. Oh. So the little plastic connector's intact and all the wires are loose. So I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do? So initially I said to the client, I said, well, sometimes when these Mac Minis they're so tight in here, over time they become a little brittle, and this connector seems to have separated from the wires, and we could probably take this back to our shop. We'll fix this for you and we'll return it. This client's like an hour away. So it's like, sort of racking my brain. But I said, but what we're going to do? We're going to just press on, and I'm going to go and I'm going to start upgrading the rest of the Mac Minis. So the first Mac Mini I go over to, I hadn't really looked close enough at it. I shut it down, I flip it over, and I'm looking at the disc on the bottom. And usually there's these indentations. There's one on each side, 180 degrees from each other. And that's the little thing that you rotate to get the black plastic panel off. That's not there. And I'm like, what's going on? I had no idea that there was a design change with the 2014 Mac Minis. Realized, okay, it's just a pressure fit, and I lift very gently at these 3 contact points, the black plastic pops off, and I'm looking at these Torx screws, and I don't really recognize the size. I go out and I take my, Weehaw tool belt kit, and I undo that, and I'm trying every single Torx wrench I have. I go out to the car. I have another set of them with other sort of rare and unusual ones. I can't find any wrenches at all that will loosen these Mac Minis. And then go to the next one, and they're all 2014 Mac Minis. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I go and I fix it for a moment, and they're like, yeah, thanks, Apple, for changing the screw design. Right. Joe, I'm sure you've encountered these in your shop, right? The 2014s?
I'm not sure we've done one yet, actually. We rarely spec the Mac Mini anymore, and other than for a server. And usually for those, it is what it is. Like, we spec it out and we never want to open that up,
First of all, who buys a 2014 Mac Mini to begin with?
Too, Yeah. Right.
They all had mechanical drives, and they were tired. I jumped on one when I was first speccing out the job, and I just didn't pay attention. So now I've got my tail between my legs, and I go into the client. I'm like, well, I've got some more bad news. I can't take these apart. So then what I did was, let me go back and look at this server again. So I run down to the car, and I find 2 sets of tweezers, and I thought I only had 1 set of tweezers. And I also brought this head loop device, that jewelers wear. Have you ever seen those? Where it's not like the monocle, but it's the whole thing that fits around your head, and it's like a visor, and it comes down, and it'll give you magnification power with the lenses on either side. And so I had brought that with me, or I had it in the car, sit down in front of the Mac Mini, and I very meticulously, with great precision and speed, I might add, I was able to replace all the wires back into the connector, quickly swapped out the 2 drives, buttoned everything up, plugged it in, and I heard the startup chime, and it was like, yeah, I was able to resurrect the day. And they had 1 Mac Mini that I could upgrade. But still, there are 6 back at this client an hour away now, and I'm waiting on wrenches. Look out, guys, for 2014 Mac Mini upgrades, because I got bitten, and I have all kinds of wrenches. I could take apart every single MacBook Air that Apple ever made. I've got all those special wrenches. I didn't have matching ones for this.
That's rough, man. At least it wasn't a total loss and you were able to get some billable out of it, because that would be unfortunate, especially for a Saturday, going all the way there and bumping into a brick wall. But you made the best of it, which is good. And you've got the new tools to be prepared next time. But yeah, I don't think I've ever taken apart a 2014 Mac Mini. That would have bitten me too, I think, the first time. I had an old Mac Mini server in the early days of PSIMac. First time I took it apart, I can't remember what I was doing. Probably was adding RAM back then. was the old style Mac Mini that goes all the way back to the original G4 Mac Mini, basically the same case design. Internal arrangements slightly different. The Apple recommended way to open it was a shaved down putty knife. Very sharpened putty knife. You slip in there, you pop it open, got the RAM in, did whatever else I was doing. And then when I unplugged one of the cables, it was this little 2-prong cable, the connector broke, just like you're describing. It was brittle. Those things are just sitting there heating, just all day. So basically the plastic gets really dry and brittle over time. Well, in my case, the connector that's like mounted to the logic board actually just popped right off the logic board. Okay, the logic board's damaged. Now, what do? I traced it back, tried to figure out what it was that I'd broken, and it turns out it was the fan cable connector. I thought, okay, well, obviously the fan's going to be important here, and if this doesn't work, I put it all back together and tried to put it in place, and it didn't work. Fan was not running, and so what would happen is the machine would boot, and it would run for a little while, and then it would just heat up to the point where it was too hot to run, and it would just like immediately shut down, like a thermal shutdown scenario.
Sure.
So I opened it back up, ended up actually being able to solder the fan to the logic board directly, just solder those 2 pins where they're supposed to be, and the fan runs and it works. And it's been working ever since then. I thought, I've got to monitor this thing, really closely now and everything. When it booted up and it stayed running, I knew, okay, the fan is running. And then I checked the fan speed. I, set up the display so I'd have the little fan speed in the menu bar so I could tell that it was running. And I've never had a problem. And I'm looking at it right now, and it's been idle for, I don't know why it's still running. I have to decommission it. It was running DNS until a few months ago.
I know why. That's your beloved Carrio mail server, isn't it?
No, it's not my Carrio mail server. And in fact, as you know, through like multiple episodes, I've migrated, so I no longer even need to maintain the Carrio mail server. It's been idle for 118.83 days as of right now. And let me just tell you the uptime, just for comparison, since it's a holiday
bragging
show.
Rights.
Yeah, bragging rights, exactly. Let's see.
Be funny if it died just right now.
I know, right? Oh, look, Softrade says disk predicted to fail based on smart data. So yeah, it probably will die right now. I think I copied the data from here, but it's one of these situations where, like, as a completionist, I think, I should really like have that data somewhere. But then in reality, the longer the time goes by, it's like less and less relevant. So
I used to hate working on those. To get at the hard drive, you'd have to take off the CD, DVD, and then disconnect the Wi-Fi antenna. And it was just like a Chinese puzzle. It was horrible.
Well, you'd get springs that would fly in different directions too. Like depending on how you pull those antennas off, like you'd have like a spring pop off, and then, it's like losing the spring inside of a pen. It's like, well, that pen's done now, But it's 176 days, so it's not so impressive.
Come on,
the original Mac Mini server, when they went to the low profile with the 2 disks, on the actual hard drive itself would be a little thermal connector. And those were such a bear because you had to be really careful when you were removing the drive. And, that little plastic flimsy jacket that sort of wraps around those 2.5-inch drives. Oh, yeah. Well, on a exposed patch of the hard drive was this little tiny, held with pressure-sensitive glue, thermal sensor. So you'd have to gingerly take off these little tiny wires to replace any of the drives. Those were really troublesome until they went to the next gen, and then they got rid of those.
Yeah, I think I remember the ones you're talking about. It was like you had to pry them off, right, with like a little spudger or like a
Yeah.
Fun times. I mean, honestly, like when Apple first started changing the screws and sealing in the batteries and all this stuff, obviously everybody was up in arms on the internet about things, that used to be user serviceable or not officially user serviceable, but like we could work on them. And especially in our world, people were upset about the fact that now they're going to lose business over this eventually. I'm really not going to miss working on this stuff, this hardware. I really don't think, eventually the writing is on the wall. I mean, anybody whose business depends on hardware repairs and upgrades needs to transform that. Sam's kitchen table. You can get your kitchen table back, Sam.
It's my dining room table. Thank you very much.
Dining room table.
I'm very formal when I work on these computers.
But, you've got to obviously transform that into some other revenue stream. I don't mind the whole unit repair. If it's got to go back to Apple, it's got to go back to Apple. And Apple just needs to get better about figuring out, like, you can't necessarily tell a business customer that it's going to be a week to get your computer back because it needs a new drive. That used to be something we could do in a matter of hours. So you've got to be able to do something like maybe they get loaners. And I think they have this stuff through joint venture. I haven't really looked at that in a while. Provided that they treat the customer service aspect properly, I don't see a downside in sealing this stuff up and not having to deal with all these weird screwdrivers anymore.
I'm not looking forward, or I am looking forward to the day when we won't be doing this anymore. Boy, this is a real sedate holiday party so far.
I'd love to take a minute to thank our sponsor this week, Watchman Monitoring.
So Watchman Monitoring is a monitoring tool that you can not only install on your computer, but on all your client computers. So once you sign up, any client that you add to your Watchman account shows up in your control panel. Watchman will monitor server software. So it'll take a look at things like Daylight, Carrio server, Lightspeed server. It'll make sure that those servers are working properly and backing up. It'll make sure that your Time Machine backups are working properly. It integrates seamlessly with products like Backblaze, CrashPlan, Carbon Copy Cloner. It will monitor I/O errors on disk drives. It'll take a look at RAID systems. It monitors network system performance, detects malware, and also can give you great reports on clients that you have on your network. So if your client is looking for inventory on all his machines and they want serial numbers and specs, Watchman can deliver that to you as well. It's invaluable, and we don't know how we run our businesses without it.
Watchman Monitoring is your main interface, with your clients for your managed services practice. It's a real cornerstone. It's true. It's a big aspect of that. And for a lot of people, I think it should be the first piece as you're building out your managed services offering. You almost can't do it without Watchman Monitoring. Before Watchman, I just remember having to corral all these disparate email alerts from all this various software. Carbon Copy Cloner is telling me that a backup failed, and Carrio is telling me that a license expired, and you just have to figure out how to manage all that stuff. With Watchman, you just have one portal. You have one place where you can go in and you can say, I don't want to know about this again for 30 days. Don't bother me again for a little while in this issue. Or you can go through and you can just get a list of all of these little issues, either by client or by machine or whatever the case may be. So it's just such a great way to have a centralized dashboard where you can see just what's going on with all of your monitoring systems. It's just a fantastic piece of software. Highly recommended. WatchmanMonitoring.com/command control power. Thanks again to Watchman Monitoring for sponsoring Command Control Power.
What do you want to know about dental implants? You ever have one of those done?
I have not.
Oh, man. Well, you guys got a lot to look forward to getting old, let me tell you. So I go in to have this, I had an extraction a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago. I haven't had an extraction since I was a kid, and it wasn't due to a cavity. It was due to a cracked tooth. Because I had a root canal done in this one molar. Oral surgeon said, well, we could fix it, but tooth is cracked. We're just going to have to extract it. Those words weighed heavy on me in the chair. He yanked this tooth. So I said to him, well, what now? He said, well, you don't want to leave it without putting something there because the tooth up top will start to weep down. Gravity will start to take effect, and I'm like having these, I know, isn't that crazy?
Did you get a gold one?
That's what I was thinking, get a gold grill, like one of the guys in the James Bond film. That's next. So an implant basically means that they put this post into the bone. So this guy's torquing down this post. It's like a drill and tap. I don't know if you remember this in machine shops.
I need another drink, man.
Yeah, right? It's a good thing he brought the right screwdrivers, Jerry. That would have been a real problem.
So he's cranking this thing down, and as he's doing it, he's taking x-rays. As he's doing this, he looks and he goes, I'm looking at the root on this other molar right next to it. It's not looking that good either. I think we're going to have to do a root canal. So I had not only this dental implant put in, but a root canal in the same sitting. I was in their chair for 2.5 hours.
You get some nitrous or anything? Like, what? How do they just decide you're going to do a root canal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, Christmas is coming. He's got toys and presents he needs to buy for his kids.
That's right.
So who better than me to facilitate that?
That's kind of messed up. If he's like, I could use a couple extra grand. You're gonna need a root canal there, buddy.
Right.
Talk to me next time you need work done. I'm an expert at it now.
You got a set of dental drills coming from Amazon too, or what?
I do some of my own.
Yeah, do it yourself, man.
Or maybe I could show one of you guys how it's done, and then you could do the next one.
I think I'll be good for a while. I just went to the dentist today, actually, for a cleaning. My dentist actually looks just like the brother from Everybody Loves Raymond, the older brother guy. And he talks just like him, too. So every time he sees me, I'm like, I really can't help it but think this guy's a big, goofy guy. But I'm nowhere near where you have to be, Jerry. When it happens, I'll be calling you.
Well, I thought I had good teeth, too, due to stress. You know how sometimes you grind your teeth and people have appliances that they put in their mouth so they don't do that. All I'm telling you, if you're listening to this and that's going on, get one of those things to sleep with, because now in hindsight, that probably would have been a good thing for me to get. So how was the CCP/HCS party, which you guys so graciously, CCP so graciously invited me to? HCS,
wasn't my party.
All right. I mean, I thought, to me, Sam, you're Mr. HCS, so I don't know. I'm just saying.
Oh, you mean an invite to the HCS party? That's different.
Yes.
I was inviting you guys to the office down the hall, so it wasn't like restaurant paid for by my company or anything like that. It was easy to invite you guys to basically the holiday party for our office building. So it was not a CIMAC hosted thing, although we kind of, we contribute, I think, more than anybody else. We're friends with the guy who hosts it in his office down the hall. He bought a big troughs of jambalaya, I guess. We were trying to debate whether it was gumbo or jambalaya, and I think we decided it was jambalaya. And he made a batch of hurricanes. Like, apparently that's a New Orleans thing to drink, which they were pretty strong. And everybody had a pretty good time. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And Sam showed up, right?
Yeah.
Then the party went downhill. Yeah, sure.
No, it was awesome to see you and Jen there and introduce you to my new guy that just started, CJ. He was there. I said, don't get too used to this. Not every week is a party at the end of the week. So, but he got to meet everybody in the building, which is great. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time.
Would I be overstepping my bounds if I said your new guy this week?
No, that's actually pretty accurate. Yeah, we're averaging one.
It's right on point.
One per month.
Sorry, Sam, I interrupted.
I was going to say it felt like a dorm party or a floor party, just like walking through the halls, and then you see one of the rooms, and big action's happening, and you walk in. It was a big party, man. It was the area that you had it in was a big open area, so it's kind of great for roaming around, talking to people, and the lighting was great. And Joe had an iMac in there with an AppleScript loop that was running a fireplace scene, so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tried to design it in Logo first. The logo chops were a little outdated. So that was actually the request of Mark, the guy whose office is down the hall, who hosted it. He said, what about like a screen? I found this thing on YouTube. It's 8 hours. Can we put this on a screen? I'm like, yeah, let me, I'll do you one better. We'll get like an iMac and we'll set it up. So you just, boot it up and it just like runs this Yule log, YouTube video. So we downloaded the QuickTime movie from YouTube using some of the YouTube downloader thing because we didn't want to like deal with, let's connect to your Wi-Fi and, figure this out. Watch ads in the middle of the YouTube thing, whatever. Downloaded the video here in our office. We set it to automatically open this video in QuickTime Player at login. So set up the auto login. So you reboot the Mac, launches this video in QuickTime Player, do a little bit of AppleScript. AppleScript tells QuickTime to basically present it in full screen. Turn on the computer and it boots up, logs in, opens the movie, and plays it full screen. And it's just like a fireplace.
It was a good time overall, though. I mean, you had good scotch, so that was important to me. I don't know if you remember me making a fuss of the scotch when I walked in. I was like, oh, you guys have Balvenie Doublewood. I definitely partook in that. Stayed away from the hurricanes because
rightly so.
The hurricanes and I have had some issues in the past. So earlier in the day, we had our holiday party. And I kind of mentioned this to you guys. One of my best friends owns a restaurant, so we all go down to that restaurant. There are 4 of us in Connecticut, so we had a great corner table, and he joined us for lunch at some point when the restaurant died down a little bit. It's always interesting because we don't get a chance to be all that social. In the meetings, we have a little bit of fun, but kind of fun to get together, have a couple glasses of wine, and start busting chops and just being a little bit loose for the holidays. So it was great.
So we had a chance to try out the YouTube TV, which is cable-free live TV. Have you heard about this?
No.
It works on your iOS device. It's new, and it will only work in certain areas. I'm sure it will work in your area, of course, because it's working up here. It's $35 a month, and you can get ESPN and Fox, NBC. You can set it up to record. It's just an app, but you could say, record this movie for me when it's on, and it'll save the movie for you in your account. It was a 7-day trial. We're not going to subscribe, but Fox had a musical version of The Christmas Story, the Gene Shepard Christmas Story with Ralphie poking his eye out with the gun. The classic movie. Yeah. So there's evidently some musical interpretation of this, and Fox did a live version of it. And it was a 3-hour event. And of course, you get all the commercials because it was live Fox TV. We've been cord cutters for a number of years, and so we haven't been completely inundated with commercials like we were this past Sunday. And I think for $35, they should pay us for enduring all these commercials. It's just insane what live TV is like, suffering through commercials all the time. But it's pretty cool. And you stream it to the Apple TV.
TV, or you could stream it to, like a Chromecast or a Roku or whatever, bump it onto your TV. No stuttering, buffering. It was great. Seamless connection, lip syncing, because that always bugs me, when there's just the slightest bit of latency with the audio and then the syncing on the screen with the lips. That was pretty good. It's definitely cool. And if you don't want to pay, your local cable provider for TV, you can get this for $35 a month and, watch some sports and still have the best of both worlds. Be a cord cutter, but subscribe.
Man, that's actually interesting to me because I've been struggling with actually cutting the cord for various reasons. Part of it is sports, although I don't watch a ton, to be honest. But to be able to get the local channels and some sports games for $35 a month, you just may have sold me on this, dude.
Yeah, check it out. There's a 7-day trial. You can go there right now, like YouTube TV.
So it's an iOS app, not an Apple TV app?
Correct. There's no Apple TV app, and there probably won't be one.
$35 a month, and you still have to watch commercials. That sounds, that sounds rough, man. Really.
Also, the other big major thing that happened, this happened a couple of weeks ago, was finally Amazon Prime app made it to the television. So now you can watch your Amazon apps, and that's huge. Yeah,
that is pretty cool. I noticed that on my, what do I have? I think I have the 3rd generation. It even popped up on there. I was impressed that they backported it to, what's now considered probably pretty ancient technology.
Yeah, it works well. It's not quite as slickly designed as Netflix, although people would argue the point that Netflix has its problems too. But I've never had issues with the way Netflix does the autoplay or gives you those previews. Some people really object to that, where as you're flipping through the programs with Netflix, it'll give you not a live but a tape loop of whatever the show is. So it's not quite as nicely designed as the Netflix app, but they'll get there, and it's just so much easier than streaming from the phone, which we were doing now for about a year and a half. So this is good.
Yeah, I never thought about how how like inconvenient that was. It always seemed to me that as an Apple consultant, like I've just got devices everywhere. I could just I could just find a spare iPad anytime I want and just stream, AirPlay it from the device to the Apple TV. Like it wouldn't be a problem. But in practice, it is really annoying. I mean, you don't, who wants to like maintain an old device just for AirPlay? Especially just for AirPlay from Amazon Prime. When you're using AirPlay, I mean, it'd be nice if you just could open an app and then like do AirPlay from that app and then go and do other things, but you can't. As soon as you exit the app, it's no longer, I mean, you're either AirPlaying the whole screen or it's no longer AirPlaying anything or whatever. It's just not a fully like functional system. I really think it would be nice if they would allow you to just like use it as a second screen, on like if I could on my iPhone 10 open up the Amazon Prime Video app, AirPlay to my Apple TV, and then just like go back to the home screen and do something on my phone and just like let it keep AirPlaying from that one app. But it's just not designed to work that way. Not a full solution. So this is really good that it's finally there.
We haven't talked about this on the show at all. We're all certified Apple consultants staying on the ACN locator by meeting all the criteria before year end. Is that going to happen for either one of you guys?
Probably not. I think I'm going to be a former member in good standing or whatever, regardless of the fact that I'm on the ACN Advisory Council. So I'm like, in theory, telling everyone else they should do this stuff. I have not been able to find the time to do that. So, I have not maintained my certifications necessary to remain in the ACN locator. Sadly.
How about you, Sam? With all those Jamf jumpsuits that you have and the Jamf shake
like
mugs.
Goes good with the putty jacket, right? The 8-ball putty jacket.
That's the next Photoshop thing we're going to see from Jerry.
That's right.
Jamf
me in like
cozies.
A Ghostbusters jumpsuit or something.
Jumpsuit. I love that. That's awesome.
He's got Jamf visors that he wears around the house.
Andy Esposito likes to rock the Jamf jumpsuit as well. I can't even say it right now.
What say you, Sam?
What are the requirements, Jerry?
Who knows? Well, if anybody's wondering, I'm not going to make it. I have all the makings in place here with the CompTIA Network Plus certification. I need to take that. Rolling into the December, just couldn't do it. Things just really escalated with family commitments and just couldn't make it happen. So I dragged my heels for most of the year, and then when it came to go time in the month of December, I just couldn't make it happen. So it's probably not going to go for me till January or February at least.
I may have been out of it, but how long have they not been accepting new applications for the ACN program?
I think about a month or two. That's just because they're transforming some aspects of the program and what the offering entails. So they don't want to like accept new members and then change the change the requirements or change the offering or anything like that. So it's just like a temporary hold.
So that would be shocking if they changed the requirements, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't think they're going to. I mean, certainly we're going to need, to maintain our Apple certifications and then the additional certifications to maintain our listing in the locator. That's all, that's all as is. But I guess in other words, like we shouldn't be reading too much into the fact that they turned off the application for new members. That's just a temporary thing for now.
He's such a good ACN board member, isn't he, Sam?
We'll get it out of him.
Well, pry it out of me. Maybe a couple more holiday parties, and you'll get your answer.
If we were there, Joe, we'd have to wipe the brown off your nose right now.
Man.
All right. We'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm just glad I'm in good company. I thought it was just going to be me like shamed into like losing my locator listing. But Jerry, you've been studying. You've been you like did all the research that I wanted to do about which was the the right path for me to move forward with the ACN, which certifications were relevant, and so on. And you still didn't make the cut, so that's it makes me feel better anyway.
Pride myself in trying to get all this stuff done, but I just couldn't make it happen. I know there's some of the guys that I follow on Slack, and kudos to you guys for taking your tests during the busy month of December and making that happen. So unfortunately, shame on me.
Well, luckily we don't need any kind of license for podcasting, so the show will remain the same.
Speaking of certifications, actually, I had a guy in my class. I taught a class last week, a Jamf 200 class, and I had a guy in there till about, I want to say maybe 10:15, and we started promptly at 9, until someone opened the door and came in and says, "Is there a Chris in this room?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's me." He's like, "You're in the wrong class." He was there for an AutoCAD class. I'm thinking, how long did you really know you were not in the right place? And yeah, it's a very different experience. So I
thought you were going to say he was your best student.
Right. That's right.
He was answering all the questions right.
Oh, man, it was too funny.
That's amazing.
That's great.
AutoCAD. Yeah, that's funny. I have questions about tech stuff. I'm wondering, because you guys run Synologies, right? You guys run these NAS boxes, for Time Machine or
we are experts
file
at
sharing.
Synology, so ask us away.
All right. So remote access, I get these alerts. There's an update ready or, an update recommended. I don't like port forwarding. I don't like to just do that in general if I can avoid it. There's some kind of Synology remote access thing that they run. I forget what it's called. It's proxied through their service. And then, of course, there's like VPN. You can VPN into the network. My question is, what is the best practice for remote access to a Synology? If I want to be able to choose when I'm going to do an update to their software, and connect remotely and do that, what's your best practice for doing that?
I personally use VPN whenever I can. So that's my method of choice anytime possible.
So Joe, you don't have any VPN through your Mac server, let's say, to get to the Synology box?
So
only?
Yeah, so I should clarify because, like, for example, this would be in a home, like a high-end residential client who has a few Macs backing up, and we don't want to just like stick a time capsule closet somewhere. Like they have a rack that they have different equipment in for their home automation system and their lighting and whatever. I mean, they have like these high-end sophisticated systems that are not installed by us, and we don't want to come in with our time capsule hardware and stick it in a corner somewhere. We want to put like a real rack-mounted solution. I look to Synology for that. So in this kind of residence, I don't have a VPN connection in. There's no server, there's no like VPN router. I could run VPN through the Synology. Let's say like I'm not interested and they're not interested in doing that. So it's just a Synology in a home. Like what would you do if you don't have VPN access for that?
They have their Quick Connect service that I think that's what you were talking about, using their service for that. Full access to the DSM to do what you needed to using Quick Connect.
Yeah, that would be ideal. This way, like you can, I could connect. It wouldn't be by IP address. It would be like through the Synology, Quick Connect service or whatever. And
if you did VPN on the Synology, it would be OpenVPN. So you'd still have to use something like TunnelBlick.
So no built-in client for that. Okay. Probably prefer not to open anything unnecessary, VPN ports or anything else. It's the kind of thing where I almost like don't necessarily want to have the conversation with certain clients. Like we're setting it up to be basically like a Time Machine server mainly. And I don't want to necessarily even recommend, let me have full access to your home through VPN. Not that they'd have a problem with me having access, but like the fact that then like now there's this VPN to their home that gives full access to everything on their network. It's just I don't necessarily want that, or they don't necessarily want that. Quick Connect sounds like a good idea to be able to just remote in, see how it's doing, install a firmware update on demand. I have my Synology here. I have it set to automatically update for, I think, whatever they call it, like critical updates, certainly not beta, but like regular updates. It will email me like 10 minutes before to be like, there's an update ready. It will automatically install in 10 minutes. And I'm like, well, that's like, I might as well not even get these emails. I guess it's nice that it sends me an email so that I know if like now it's offline, well, I know what happened. But it's not like I'm going to like get the email and like quickly like, stop the update or something in a 10-minute time frame. But that's for me here because I obviously have physical access and I can just deal with it. But for client machines, because of those issues that we had with Synology, like over the last year or something, I don't necessarily want to set it to auto update. I don't have a regular scheduled maintenance with these residential clients to go in and do things like update. So, I mean, it's basically no better or worse than the like firmware situation on an airport, but there's just it's not like I can just tell a client, when airport utilities says there's a firmware update, just go ahead and do it. The Synology, you've got to like actually go in, log in, and it takes a couple more steps to do it. I guess I either have the option of using Quick Connect or manually scheduling a time to remote in, using TeamViewer to a client Mac and then connecting to the Synology by IP address locally, essentially, and then do the update.
So you can't do this on iOS. There's no iOS Synology app that will allow you to get to the desktop. So you would probably need to do this on a desktop computer using Quick Connect, get onto the Synology desktop. Is that what you were thinking, Sam?
Yep.
Okay.
You got it, sir.
Cool. All right. That's a good recommendation.
And Sam, you wouldn't have any reservations about using their Quick Connect service?
Whenever possible, like I said, I use a VPN, so I know of it. I have one person who set it up themselves who has Quick Connect on it. It's just not something I especially if I have VPN, then I don't have a need to do it. You know what I mean?
I use it on both my Synologies, even though I do have a VPN into the office. I'm not concerned about it. I don't necessarily store anything super important on there. I do use it for time machine backups, Joe. I think it's only as good as the access password. So
yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm a little bit hesitant. If somebody just resets your password to that service through Synology, if somebody gets access to your email, they're basically on your Synology.
Well, they have two-factor. You could turn that on.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's
all right, that's good to know.
That's good. You can have a good two-factor authentication with your PSIMacRules ! Password. I know. I figured that out. I was reading your emails and I saw your super secret password.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna have to change that. That's the secret key to every client that's on the network. So
now we have a show title.
That's like my Geek Squad 123 password from like I don't know 2 seasons ago when I went on site to a client and they like there was like a password saved for something and it was like Geek Squad 123 or whatever.
That's terrible.
I'm like, you guys, man.
Since we're on the topic of Synology, I actually have a situation where I'm finally moving this client from a Mac Mini server, actually 2 Mac Mini servers, to a Synology. It's taken me quite some time to get them there, but their other 2 offices already have Synologies. So the only thing about this is that this particular client, this is the main office for the others, and they have a pretty complex permission scenario where different folders have different permissions for admins or CEO or whatever. And so to recreate that would be a bit of a difficulty. We're going to keep Open Directory in place for other reasons. So I'm wondering if I connect the Synology to the Open Directory, which you can do, and get that bound to Open Directory, and then I transfer the data, will the permissions know the owners and users or the users and groups that exist in Open Directory and still apply? And that I don't know.
Transfer the data how?
I would connect to the file share and then use the ditto command in terminal because that keeps the permissions.
Right.
As long as that other the box that's receiving it knows about those permissions, which I assume it would because it's talking to Open Directory.
Man, but that's a tough question. Why don't you try it and let us know?
No. Yeah. You do that and get back to us, Sam.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
So then what would your ultimate plan be? So then you have a Mac server that's running Open Directory that has all the files stored. Then you have the Synology that's an Open Directory replica that now has the files stored on it. Even if the permissions are accurate there, are you decommissioning the Mac server at that point?
Not right away. So I think our plan, we already talked to one of our main point people over there. The plan is to kind of whiteboard a new scenario of permissions and just talk about what access people should have, because over time groups have are no longer needed, or things like that we maybe have some ancillary data and group permissions that are unnecessary at this point. But it's not going to be, the timing isn't going to be right to do it right during the transfer. So we got to get the data over and then have that future conversation about, okay, we're going to rebuild permissions. And at that point, what I'd probably do is set up local users on the Synology and groups on the Synology, and then build my new permission sets and then decommission Open Directory. But it's going to be a two-phase project.
That makes sense. I think that's a wise way to do it, because it sounds like one of these scenarios where if you ask them the question like, well, like before we migrate the data, like now's the time to figure out like who needs access to these things and how to reconfigure permissions. They're going to be like, oh man, and they're not going to move forward with their Synology project at all, right? At that point,
right? Yeah, you give them too much, and they're just like, oh crap. So I'm tabling it, but I have to test it, like as Jerry wisely said, test it out and let us know.
Test it, right? Exactly.
Yeah, what Synology boxes were you thinking of? Like 5-bay, 8-bay?
Yeah, this is I think it's a 5-bay unit actually.
Well, what I was wondering is like if you get, if you go through this process and then you've got all the data in place with the permissions in place from, the Open Directory via the Open Directory replica of the Synology, then like when you go to phase 2, I guess there's like there's some kind of built-in facility to change the permissions and reapply permissions in the Synology and local users, or how would that look? Have you looked into that?
If what you're thinking, meaning I'll have all this legacy information of all users and stuff, I suppose the one thing I need to figure out, a clean way, like on the Mac side, to run a command, change modify command to clear all the ACLs on it. I just need to see an equivalent way of doing it on the Synology, which I'm sure there is.
Right. That's what I was wondering. Yeah. Exactly. That's what I would do on the Mac. But yeah, on the Synology, I have no idea like what, how you deal with permissions like that.
It's a good question though. So I'll have to run that test too.
Right.
And how many users are you talking about? Hundreds or just like a couple dozen or?
No, like I think 16 total.
Yeah. So that's not a big deal anyway.
No, it's just those specialized areas that, like, they have areas where you can get into the top level folder, everyone can get there, and then there's an admin folder buried. It's a mess right now, and it does need to be fixed, which is why I want to just sit down with the principals there and whiteboard it and say, okay, who should get access to here, or should we move stuff over to a new admin folder and rebuild this a bit more? But for now, it's a little bit messy from years of changes. You know how that happens? Like you're working with clients over years and just crap just gets stuck in there and moved around. So it's kind of nasty right now, but I don't want to, like I was saying, I don't want to do it as part of the same migration. I want to get the stuff over, make sure the permissions take hold, and then have a meeting to follow up about phase 2.
Yeah. Again, I think that does seem wise based on the fact that, a lot of times clients will look for an excuse not to move forward with something, and then you're just like back where you started. So any forward movement at all is good.
Yeah, and the reason, if anybody asks about why I'm not fixing permissions first and then moving over, one of the things is this client always wants to make a lot of their big purchases by end of year. So like before the year ends, they want to spend a whole bunch of money for tax purposes. So they did that. They bought the Synology, they bought new CAD workstations, they bought all this stuff, spent thousands, and they want to get the work done too. So that's the reason why we're doing it in this order as opposed to the other order.
I'm updating my Synology while you guys are talking.
Nice.
That's a smart move. Did it just come out like 5 minutes ago? You're going to hit it?
Yeah, right.
Lots of updates. Yeah, lots of updates to the disk stations. Have you noticed that lately?
Yes. Fast and Furious. I'm like, oh my God, there's another one. And I get, from all my Synologies, we get the email alerts. So I get like a ton in the middle of the night for all these different Synology units.
But have you noticed how there's so much dependency with the Mac when it boots up for all these apps that run in your menu bar or are just simply sitting in your dock that need to phone home? I was at a client site today, and it was just unbelievable. Some of the machines needed to be updated, and as they were trying to boot into the home screen, there was just like so many different apps that needed to handshake outside of the local area network. It's just mind-boggling. TeamViewer, Creative Cloud, the Microsoft Office apps. I'm using a Cloud Station on this particular client. That's what made me think of it, which is a Synology sort of like private Dropbox. If you have a real dodgy internet, you can literally be sitting at a client site just trying to reboot the computer and waiting for it to log in, and you just get the spinning beach ball going on and on and on because it just can't possibly, make all those authentications out on the WAN.
Yeah, it's rough when it's spotty, like you said. If you have no internet connection, most apps are like, okay, that's fine. I'll stop trying. I have no internet connection. If it's working, if you're actually online, but it's just really slow, most apps have no way of saying, let me request less data right now, or like, let me adjust what I'm trying to do based on the fact that I don't have a good connection. If there's any connection, they try to like go full throttle, like download everything, do everything, sync everything, update everything. And that really gets really rough.
And at this client site, they had a Skype update. That was the worst. Skype just wanted to dominate everything in Activity Monitor, and Skype's like, I need to, update, and I need to authenticate, and I need to have this user sign in, and I need this user to have a new helper tool installed. And Skype was just like completely hosing the computer. Really frustrating. And I resolved most of them by taking them all off Wi-Fi and just having to plug them in, via Ethernet using adapters. And all of a sudden, everything kind of reconciled.
Well, since we're talking tech, what's the one technology you guys rely on most beyond anything? I'll just answer my own question. Search. Search. When you switch to a new Mac, right, and Spotlight has to reindex, everything else like Migration Assist, it migrates all your data, you're ready to go, you boot up, a couple things need to be like logged in, but you're pretty much good to go. You're in Mail and you just try to answer any question at all. Any bit of reference data I need to pull out from Search. There's no way I'm going into Sent and sorting by from and scrolling to find the person or whatever. I'm just searching for any email that I sent to this person. What did I say? When did I say it? What price did I quote? Whatever. That's all based on Search. And until Spotlight finishes indexing, I'm completely crippled. I cannot function that way. And I mention all this because I just upgraded to a 2-year-old MacBook Pro 15-inch model. Jerry, I upgraded to a 2-year-old's computer, and it's great. It's way better.
Yeah, and clients, you're absolutely right, though, Joe. Clients get really frustrated when their mail search breaks because they need it just as much as we do. And one of the worst is the Spotlight database for Outlook. Sam probably knows more about this, can get completely hosed. Mm-hmm. That is a real frustration to get that working again for a client. And it was true with Office 2011 and now 365. I've seen it happen on both types of versions of Outlook. There are help articles that Microsoft puts out there, but it's a real bear to get it back and working.
Yeah, it seems more brittle in general than Mail. It just seems like Outlook tends to hit a wall and break. Sometimes it just need to be rebuilt. Whereas again, with Mail, I don't think I ever have to rebuild Spotlight for me anyway. Once in a while for clients, you have to rebuild it. But yeah, new machine, it's to be expected. It's just then you really realize I realize how much I depend on that constantly.
Right. Do you have any intelligence on that, Sam?
No.
Always insightful, Sam. Always insightful.
Always has stuff to bring to the table. That's what I was.
Tune in live January 2nd, 2018 at 8 p.m. at commandcontrolpower.com. Click on live and we will see you in the chat room and you can talk to us and we can share your comments and we'll be there live on January 2nd, 2018 at 8 p.m. So tune in at commandcontrolpower.com. Everybody stay safe and have a happy and healthy holiday.
Merry Crimble.
Same to you.
Merry Crimble, Jerry. Merry Crimble.
Merry Crimble, Sam. Merry Crimble, Joe.
Merry Crimble.
Wishing everyone happy Crimble and a Merry New Year.
Ja, das wird und Dankeschön und den Grüß von Even. Ja, den Grüß von Ida schon. Ja, das wird wunderschön, boy. Dankeschön.
Special thanks to the following community members whose strong monthly support has sustained us for all these years. Ryan Gowdy, CoreCompetent.com. Weldon Dodd, Kanji.io. Richard Wingfield, EnvisionDesign.net. Adam Rice, AskAdam.io. Mac Admins Podcast, podcast.macadmins.org. Tim Nyberg, TheMacGuys.com. Michael Thompson, Origin84.com. Matthew Waples, Waples.net. Tom Puls, BoxIT.tech. Jerome Potters, PITPro.nl. Steve Sorbo, MacSOS.biz. Andy Espo, CallAndy.com. And Nate Sinal, WeAreScout.com. Thank you all very much, and thanks to our patrons at every level of support. If you enjoy the show, we really would love your support. And if you already support us and can increase your monthly pledge, we really do find that encouraging. CommandControlPower.com and click support. Thanks very much for listening and for supporting the show.
voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a cent